We all hit walls in our healing or manifestation journey, but what if resistance isn't the enemy, but a messenger? Today's episode explores how resistance often reveals where fear, old programming, or unmet needs are hiding, and how to work with it rather than against it to create flow and alignment. And I have a free resource for you to figure out exactly what your specific energetic snags are and how to fix them. And I'll share more about that later. Welcome to Jyotindi, Journey to the Inner Divine, a sacred space for healing energy, emotional release, and soulful transformation. If you're ready to live with joy, ease, and purpose, you're in the right place. Before I began sharing my gifts with the world, I spent a lot of time working on myself. That meant a lot of learning, seminars, books, getting coached, and trying everything in my power to become better, whatever that meant. Trying to self-development my way out of depression, trying to become a millionaire in a year like I was seeing all over the internet, and working my tush off all day and all night for what seemed like no results. One thing that is a really big topic in the personal development world is self-sabotage. They always try to teach you ways to stop the self-sabotage. But one thing that I learned during this time on my own, the gurus will never tell you this, is that what looks like self-sabotage could just be unhealed trauma. It could be conflicting desires that are pulling you in multiple directions. It could be that you aren't giving yourself the right tools to thrive. It's not always that you have a fear of success, so you're blocking yourself. Believe me, there was nothing that I wanted more than to get out of my own way. But it seemed like the harder I tried, the more resistance I met. I became overwhelmed and burned out. And that felt terrible because I knew that I would never be happy working for someone else. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I knew that's where I wanted my life to lead. But I was so stuck. I had no idea what I needed to do to move forward towards my goals. And it turns out that the answer wasn't to try and push through. It wasn't to change my mindset towards success or failure. And it certainly wasn't that there was an evil secret part of me that I didn't know about, sabotaging my every move towards success. I was just unhealed. I had more to learn about myself. I wasn't trusting in the divine timing of my life. I wasn't letting things unfold the way they should have. I saw a glimpse of what my future held, and I wanted it right then. I didn't want to do the legwork or take the time to properly set things up. My trauma had me desperate for success immediately. It literally felt like I was going to die if I wasn't able to get my business up and running, covering all my expenses in 1 year or less. So when that didn't happen, it was crushing. I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. So I let go. I stopped trying to force everything. I stopped trying to control it. I traveled the country in a van with my little dog and totally disconnected from the pressures of society, telling me how my life needed to look. And you know what? It was so freeing. I never felt peace the way that I did when I was living in my van. The lack of pressure, the lack of trying to force my life to fit into a box that somebody else made. I stepped back from capitalism and I allowed myself, for the first time in my life, to do what felt right to me, to wake up when I wanted, to go where I wanted, and to be whoever I wanted. I did eventually rejoin the rat race, and it was a very tough transition. I'm not going to lie about that. But there are lessons that I learned along my journey that have made my life since so much more enjoyable. And I know not everyone can just unplug from their life and disappear on a journey to find themselves like I did. So I'd like to share what I learned so that you can take the lessons forward with you and hopefully find more peace, love, and enjoyment in your own life. First, self-sabotage is a symptom, not a cause of your troubles. Oftentimes, it's a signal from your nervous system that something doesn't feel safe or needs attention. When our bodies and energy fields are holding on to unprocessed emotions or old tension, it creates a kind of energetic traffic jam. Your nervous system, in its deep wisdom, starts to read any forward movement as potentially unsafe. So even though your soul is calling you toward expansion and growth, you just can't take the step. This is what I want you to really understand. What looks like self-sabotage isn't about being lazy or lacking willpower or having an evil little gremlin living inside you trying to ruin your life. It's your inner protective system doing what it thinks is best for you. It's trying to keep you safe from what it remembers as dangerous based on your experiences and your wounds from your past. Let me share some examples of how this might show up for you. Maybe you find yourself procrastinating when it's time to share your gifts with the world. And beneath that, there's a younger version of you who learned that standing out wasn't safe. Or perhaps you notice yourself pushing away support or not accepting help from others. And underneath, there's an old betrayal that taught you not to trust receiving from others. Sometimes you might even find yourself recreating drama or chaos, not because you want it, but because your system became so used to living that way that peace and calm actually feel unfamiliar and sometimes even uncomfortable. But the beautiful news is this, that when you bring loving, healing energy to those root wounds, whether it's through somatic release, EFT tapping, breath work, energy clearing, you help your body remember that it's safe to move forward now. That overwhelm begins to dissolve, not because you're forcing anything, but because you're no longer at war with your own energy. Instead, you're learning to work with it, to understand it, and to gently guide it toward the expansion that your soul is calling you toward. The second thing, holding on too tightly is going to suffocate your dreams, not prevent them from getting away. I know this because I lived it. There was a time when I was so desperate to succeed that I genuinely believed my life would be completely meaningless if I didn't hit my goals. But here's what I learned. That desperation didn't make me more focused. It made my energy frantic and ungrounded. And desperate energy, it repels the very things that you're trying to attract. When you're not trusting yourself, when you're operating from fear and scarcity, people can feel that. They can't fully trust you because you haven't learned to trust yourself. I was constantly trying to release a new program, always reaching for something bigger and better than what I just created. And the truth, what I was already doing was working, but I couldn't see it. I was so consumed by this idea that I didn't have enough clients. I wasn't growing fast enough. I wasn't becoming an overnight success. And to me, anything short of that felt like failure. But let me tell you what was actually happening while I was so busy feeling like I wasn't enough. I was helping people. I was making profound, deep, lasting impact on their lives. I was completely transforming the way that they looked at themselves and their place in the world. I helped one client overcome an anxiety disorder that controlled their life for years. Another went from barely scraping by to complete financial abundance. And another became the first person in her family to graduate college with honors. And these aren't small things. These are life-changing, generational healing moments. And yet I was so trapped in my own story of not enough that I completely discounted the beautiful impact that I was already having. I couldn't see that I was working in perfect timing, that I was learning exactly what I needed to learn to build the foundation for what I'm doing now. What shifted everything for me was doing my own deep healing work. I had to go through a period of intense work on my trauma to finally release the story that my path needed to look like anyone else's. I had to give myself permission to slow down, to step back, to see the bigger picture that my soul was trying to show me. And from that space, I rebuilt my business in a completely new way, a way that actually works for me, and a way that doesn't feel desperate or rushed, a way that's 100% motivated by helping the right people, not by trying to help all the people. Because here's what I realized. I'm not meant to help everyone, and that is more than okay. It's actually sacred. My circle can be smaller, and that allows me to go deeper instead of wider. And going deep, that's where the real transformation happens. We're all craving authentic human connection. We need it to survive. Yes, reaching 1 million people with the real is wonderful. I've made a small ripple in 1 million people's awareness, and that matters. But when I go deep with one person, when I help them completely transform their life, that transformation doesn't stop with them. It touches their coworkers, their partner, their children, Those children carry that healing forward throughout their entire lives. They pass it on to their own children. And suddenly, I'm not just helping one person, I'm shifting the consciousness of future generations. And that kind of depth, that's rarely going to come from somebody watching a 20-second reel. So here's what I've learned. There is profound value in putting 100% into wherever you are at in this moment. Instead of feeling that urgent, anxious pull to do more, I feel genuine gratitude for my circle right now. I feel good about going deep with the people who are here, about helping each person as fully as I possibly can. And I'm sharing this with you because I want you to see something. That letting go of what you're gripping too tightly will set you free. Keep holding the vision for what you want to create, absolutely. But be open to it evolving, shifting, or morphing into what your higher self can already see that you're ready for, capable of, and deserving of. When you release the death grip on your dreams, what comes to you is often more beautiful, more aligned, and more fulfilling than anything you could have forced into being. So I want to touch on some other reasons why resistance shows up in your life. And I want you to listen and just notice and see if any of these stand out to you. Sometimes it's because you're not energetically aligned yet, and that's okay. Sometimes resistance shows up because there's a vibrational mismatch between where you are and what you're calling in. It's not that you can't have it, it's that your energy field is still clearing the old frequencies that don't match your desire. The resistance is asking you to do the inner work first. Heal the wound, shift the belief, raise your vibration. When you become the energetic match for what you want, the resistance will naturally dissolve. Sometimes resistance shows up to tell you this isn't the right path, or at least not the right way to get there. Resistance can be your soul's GPS rerouting you. Maybe the dream is right, but the method you're using isn't aligned with your authentic path. Or maybe what you think you want isn't actually what your higher self knows you need. The resistance is inviting you to get curious. Is this truly my desire? Or is this somebody else's dream that I've adopted? Is there a more aligned way to move toward this? Learning to get in tune with your intuition and trust your gut will help make the answers to your questions so much more clear. Sometimes resistance shows up because you're trying to skip a necessary step in your evolution. Sometimes we want to take that quantum leap to the destination without honoring the journey, like I did. But our soul has lessons to learn, skills to develop, and parts of ourselves to integrate along the way. And the resistance might be saying, slow down. There's something here that you need to experience, understand, or embody before you're ready for what's next. It's not a punishment, it's preparation. This one ties closely into holding on too tight. Because sometimes when we're holding on too tight, we miss the fact that we need to go through the full process to be ready for what we're meant for. Maybe resistance is showing up in your life because you're operating from wounds instead of wholeness. When we are chasing something to prove our worth, to escape our pain, or to fill a void inside us, resistance shows up as a loving boundary. It's your inner wisdom saying, heal first, then create from your overflow. Because what we build from our wounds will always require more healing later. The resistance is protecting you from creating something that would eventually crumble because the foundation wasn't solid. And sometimes resistance appears in our life because you need to surrender control and trust in divine timing. This one is so hard for those of us who are action-oriented, but sometimes resistance is teaching us about faith, patience, and divine timing. There are forces at work behind the scenes, connections to be made, opportunities aligning, lessons being learned by the people involved. The resistance is asking, can you trust that the universe is working for you, even when you can't see the full picture? Can you release the how and when and simply hold the vision with an open heart? If any of these causes stood out to you, take note. Did you get goosebumps or shivers when I was talking about one specific reason? Did you get a lump in your throat or feel your stomach turn? Those are your body's signals. Your intuition is speaking to you. Learning to listen to these messages is going to guide you along your path to help you find your purpose with ease. Learning how to take that stuck energy of resistance and transmute it using self-compassion and awareness is how you're going to be able to take these messages forward and apply them in your life to create a massive change. Listening to inner wisdom instead of trying to ignore it or trying to push it aside to accomplish your goals is going to pave the way for you to begin to lead a life of alignment and divine flow. And to deepen this understanding, I created a free resource for you to gain the clarity that you need in order to make the most of these messages. It's called the Clarity Map, and you can find the link in the show notes, or you can find it at mariahaurora.com/freebie/clarity. These messages that resistance are sending you are divine helpers along your path to healing. Don't look at it as an obstacle, but as a guide towards your best life. Learning to work with your emotions will not only guide you towards the life you desire, but it'll make the journey there more peaceful and joyous. And isn't that the whole point? Happiness isn't a destination to be reached. It's making the most of your life along the way. Because we all end up in the same place after this life. So why not enjoy the ride while we're here, learning the sacred lessons we came here for? I really hope this episode resonated with you. If it did, could you do me a favor and share it with someone? You never know who needs to hear these messages, so let's try to spread the word. And don't forget, there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path.